Hello, everyone. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Minimira Show. I am praying to the video gods today that everything goes smoothly with this recording, as last time the video didn't record. So hopefully everything goes well this time. Say a little prayer, pray for me. All right, welcome back to the Minimira Show. I actually took a couple weeks off of filming podcasts because I had an unexpected death in the family. One of my cousins passed away, and it was very shocking and sad. And I think that when we have things come up in our lives, we have to take moments to surrender to what's going on, to pause, to process, and I wouldn't really be the host of an emotional wellness show if I didn't do that for myself. So I did that, and now we're back. So, as you know, this is the Minimira Show. On this podcast, we talk about emotional wellness, spirituality, life philosophy, and so much more. I'm your host, Amira Sookram, and I am the author of the Guilt Free Goals book, and have a special announcement at the end of this podcast about what my new book is going to be called and a little bit more about that. So stay tuned for that. On this podcast episode, I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I have one of my favorite books here to read from, and it's a quote that has always spoken to me, and it's my favorite part of the book, which is the end of the book. Surprisingly, it's the end of the book, but the last pages have just always stood out to me as very philosophical and made me think so much about life when I was a teenager. And now that I'm older, I still love it just as much. And it's probably my favorite passage ever to read out loud. And I'm not going to read I'm not going to read all of it because there's a lot of spoilers, but I'm going to read a part that I think doesn't spoil this book, but just brings out what I want to talk about in this episode. So, my favorite book, or one of my favorite books, Looking for Alaska by John Green. I think it's one of his best works. So, at the end, he says, I believe now that we are greater than the sum of our parts. If you take Alaska's genetic code and you add her life experiences and the relationships she had with people, and then you take the size and the shape of her body, you do not get her. There is something else entirely. There is a part of her greater than the sum of her knowable parts. What I want to talk about today is how we break ourselves into pieces and we try and understand these pieces of ourselves. And when we only have that single view of ourselves, it's really hard to love ourselves. What I've been learning in my own life personally is that I can't just love this part of me and I can't just love that part of me and then hate that part or not like that that's my favorite song or, there's just so many different little bits of us. And we are not those little bits. We are the whole of who we are. And as this quote says, like, we're not going to get who we are if we just take all those little bits and put it together because we're not the parts of ourselves. We are whole. We are whole human beings. We are whole souls, and we can't just break ourselves into parts. So, I wrote about this in my latest newsletter. If you haven't subscribed to Flow Notes yet, I highly recommend it. I send out notes every month and then also at the beginning of each season just to talk about seasonal energies. And this month, I talked about breaking ourselves into pieces. So, with emotional wellness and the idea of emotional literacy, we are taking those pieces of ourselves and we're trying to understand ourselves better. And I think that when we look at just the words or the identities that we create for ourselves, we're not going to get a whole picture of who we are. And the reason why I teach emotional literacy is so that you can get in touch with your needs and desires. But I also really believe in duality. And so where I'm coming from with this is that, yes, we can understand these emotions that are going on, but I've said it before, we're not just these singular emotions happening. We're not just sad. Like with sadness can come a little bit of joy or a little bit of jealousy or a little bit of anger or exhaustion. Like it's not just singular things. And I think when we try to categorize ourselves and label ourselves into these little spaces, we're losing the whole of who we are when we do that. What really made me think of this quote recently was that in the passing of loved ones, we always have this view of who they were or our projection of who they are or were. And it's kind of hard to remember that they were the whole of who they are. And when we view people in this way, not just the passing of loved ones, when we view the parts of somebody that we like and then we say, well, we don't like these parts, that takes us out of this energy of being able to love somebody. And we don't just do this to other people, we do it to ourselves too. We break ourselves into the I love the part of me that gets up at 6 a.m. and goes for a run, but I hate the part of me that feels depressed and anxious and wants to sleep all the time. And when we do that, we're we're I want to say like it's like we're broken. We're breaking ourselves into these pieces that this is lovable and this is not. And when we put those labels on things, it's harder to find that full, whole love for ourselves. So I want to encourage you in this episode to, yes, acknowledge those pieces of yourself, acknowledge all those little bits of self awareness, acknowledge those feelings that come up, create awareness over these pieces. But at the end of the day, at the end of life, I want you to remember that you're not just all those little pieces. And when you put all those little pieces together, it doesn't encompass all that you are. You are whole and more than just what words, what feelings, what actions you have created on this earth. Are on a soul level, and I talk about this in my book, like we are getting in touch with our feelings to not just understand our feelings here on this earth, but it's to understand what our soul is trying to tell us. Call it intuition, call it manifestation in a different way, but we are here to connect with that soul level or godlike level of who we are. I can continue saying the same thing over and over again, but I think I will leave it there to love all of who people are. And I think even in my grief, I found the most helpful thing is to just be accepted as I am right here, right now. And that is really the person or whoever I'm speaking to accepting all of who I am, good, bad, ugly, pretty, whatever it may be. It's all a part of who I am. And being accepted just as you are, just like that, is like my definition of what love would be. I think we have to have this for ourselves as well. I think that to love ourselves is really to accept all parts of who we are, which is really not to be broken into parts. It's to accept the whole of who we are. And that is what I have been thinking and saying to myself, what I see as love. So, as always, I'm going to end this off with a question, and that is to take one part of your shadow, of your wounds, one part that makes you super uncomfortable. Think of it right now. Take a deep breath in and understand that you can love it as a part of who you are. Okay, so now I have a huge smile on my face because I'd love to leave you with my book updates. I, at the end of last week, finished writing the second draft of my book, which is actually, I guess, the final draft. I'm just going into editing mode now, and then I'll be sending it out to beta readers to read and give feedback on, and then, all the putting together of a book before it gets self-published. So it is in the final legs of being done, which is very exciting. I've been working on this. I mean, there's been a lot of inspiration flowing through me for a couple of years, and I've been writing since September 2023. So it's a huge deal. I'm very excited to be done the grueling process of the writing season of my life and now be moving into editing, which is really emotional to kind of reread what I've written. But I think that so far it's been really cool to see, and I cannot wait to get it into your hands, into your heart, and speaking to your soul. Oh my God. So I recorded all of that and forgot to say the name of the book, which is, drumroll please, I have been hinting at this for a while, and I'm so excited to finally say that the book will be called Feelings Based Living. There will be a subtitle, which I'm working on the details of, but yeah, it's all about being able to make decisions in your life and allow your feelings to help you make those decisions because oftentimes we get really emotional over our decisions and have a hard time making them. So, this book will help you get in tune with your feelings so that you can make decisions that align with your needs and desires in this life. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for being here. If you like this podcast episode, please share it with a friend, share the reels of the clips of it on TikTok or Instagram, and follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at Amira Sookram. And you can go to amirasukram.com to join Flow Notes, which is little notes that I send out at the beginning of each month and each season.